There is a particular kind of silence that descends on a person when they stop believing in the things they once held sacred. It is not the silence of peace. It is something far more unsettling, a quiet so complete that you begin to wonder if you have somehow become deaf to the frequencies that once made you feel alive. You are sitting in a room with people you care about, and they are laughing, sharing stories, speaking with an ease and fluidity that seems almost supernatural to you now. You watch them the way an anthropologist watches a tribe from behind glass, fascinated and vaguely horrified by your own alienation from what should be natural, what should be yours. The warmth they are experiencing feels theoretical to you, something you could describe in words but cannot actually access, like reading about the taste of honey when your tongue has forgotten how to taste. You smile at the right moments. You say the things you are supposed to say. But somewhere inside, in that cavernous space that has opened up behind your eyes, you know that you are not really here. You are watching yourself from a distance, narrating your own life as though it belongs to someone else. And this realization, this terrible, unspeakable realization, fills you with a dread that you cannot articulate without sounding insane. It is possible you have begun to suspect that something is fundamentally wrong with you. Not with the world, not with circumstances, not with timing or bad luck, or the unfortunate cards you were dealt. Something inside your own consciousness has broken in a way that cannot be repaired. You wonder if this is depression, though it does not feel like sadness exactly. Depression suggests an absence of feeling, and what you are experiencing is worse than that. It is a presence of unreality, a sense that you are viewing existence through a pane of glass that grows thicker every day. Or perhaps you are simply cold. Perhaps you have become one of those people who is incapable of genuine connection, one of those individuals who uses intelligence as a shield against vulnerability and then wonders why intimacy remains forever outside their reach. You have caught yourself being unkind in small ways, saying things with a precision that cuts rather than connects, and you have wondered if this is who you have always been, if your kindness was ever real or merely a performance you staged for an audience that has now seen through the act. The thought that you might be fundamentally arrogant, that your curiosity about the nature of reality might simply be a way of inflating your own importance, began to seep into your consciousness like water through cracks in concrete. You lie awake at night, conducting an inventory of your own emotional poverty. You catalogue every moment you failed to feel what you were supposed to feel, every time you chose solitude over connection, every instance where you noticed yourself observing life rather than living it. The fear that you are broken, genuinely and perhaps irreparably broken, has become a constant companion. It whispers to you during conversations. It sits beside you when you are alone. It suggests that other people are experiencing something real while you are forever locked outside, pressing your face against the glass of a life you can see but never truly inhabit. And yet, something shifts when you consider the possibility that this is not a pathology at all but rather a transition. It is not an easy shift. It does not come with comfort or relief, but it comes with a strange kind of clarity, the clarity that arrives when you stop trying to fix the problem and instead look directly at what is actually happening. The alienation you are experiencing, the sense of watching yourself from outside your own skin, the difficulty in accessing emotions that once came easily, these are not signs of illness. They are signs of a very specific and very real process. You are not broken, you are becoming. The distinction is subtle, but it is absolute. Throughout human history, across cultures and centuries, there have been individuals who experienced exactly what you are experiencing now, and what happened to them was not that they recovered their former capacity for simple pleasure and unreflective contentment. What happened was that their entire relationship with consciousness shifted fundamentally. They moved from a mode of being that was largely automatic, largely reactive, largely driven by patterns they had inherited without examining them, into a mode of being that was more deliberate, more questioning, more aware of its own mechanisms. This shift is not comfortable. It cannot be comfortable because comfort requires a kind of unconsciousness, a willingness to not ask certain questions, to not see certain things. Once you have begun to see, you cannot unsee. Once you have begun to question the nature of your own thoughts, you cannot return to thinking your thoughts are simply reality. You are not depressed. You are not emotionally broken. You are not cold or arrogant or incapable of genuine feeling. You are in the process of waking up, and the peculiar horror of waking up is that the dream you were living in, however limiting, however false, was at least coherent. Your life made sense when you were asleep. Your desires were clear, your values seemed obvious. Your place in the world seemed fixed and knowable. Now, in this state of half-consciousness, nothing makes complete sense anymore. The values you inherited seem increasingly arbitrary. The desires that drove you seem like the desires of a child following a pattern drawn by others. And this disorientation, this profound uncertainty, feels a great deal like illness because the human organism naturally resists the loss of familiar frameworks. Consider for a moment what happens to a person who has spent their entire life in a room lit by a particular color of light. Everything they see, everything they perceive, everything they build their understanding of reality upon is filtered through that light. They do not realize the light is there because they have never known anything else. They think they are seeing the world as it actually is. They build philosophies on what they see. They make decisions based on their understanding. They construct their entire identity around their perception of reality. Then, one day, through some crack in the wall, a different light appears. It is only a thin beam at first, it is barely noticeable. But once you have seen it, you cannot ignore it. You begin to understand that everything you have been seeing has been distorted by the light in the room. You look back at the world through the old light, and you see it differently now. The colors are wrong. The proportions are misleading. The very architecture of what you thought was real is revealed to be contingent, constructed, subject to the filter through which you were viewing it. This is what is happening to you. You are not going mad. You are becoming aware of the light that has always been filtering your perception. The tragedy is that becoming aware of the light does not immediately grant you access to unfiltered reality. The tragedy is that you now stand in a liminal space, seeing the old light for what it is, but not yet fully adapted to perceiving without it. The world looks strange and wrong, but you cannot quite articulate why. You feel separated from others, not because they are shallow, though some of them may be, but because they are still perceiving through the old light and you are not. When they speak of their concerns, their desires, their sources of meaning and pleasure, you hear an innocence in their voices that you can no longer access. You hear the sound of people speaking from within a consensus reality that you have begun to question. This is disorienting. This is lonely, but it is not pathological. It is the inevitable result of growing in awareness. There is a particular quality to this experience that can be understood through the metaphor of a stage. Imagine that your entire life you have been an actor, performing on a stage without knowing it was a stage. You believed the world you inhabited was real. You accepted the props as genuine. You learned your lines and performed them with sincerity because you did not know you were performing. You responded to other actors as though they were real people with independent consciousness. You moved through a narrative that felt spontaneous and real. Then gradually, you began to notice things. You began to see the edges of the set. You began to notice that certain scenes repeat themselves with variations. You began to perceive that the emotions that move through the other actors follow patterns, that their dialogue follows structures, that the entire thing has the quality of something orchestrated rather than spontaneous. Most terrifying of all, you began to notice yourself noticing. You became aware of your own performance. You became conscious of the gap between the character you are playing and the consciousness that observes the character playing. This awareness is what has created your sense of unreality. It is not that you have become emotionally dead. It is that you have become conscious of your own emotional machinery. You can see how emotions are triggered in you. You can observe the patterns that generate your responses. You can watch your own unconscious habits as though they belong to someone else. In becoming aware of the stage, you have become aware that you were on a stage. In becoming conscious of the machinery of emotion, you have lost the simple involuntary access to emotion that you once had. It is like the difference between watching yourself move your hand and simply moving your hand. The moment you become conscious of the mechanism, the action becomes clumsy. The fluidity is lost. You begin to wonder if you can still move your hand at all. This explains the peculiar quality of your solitude. You are not alone because you are broken. You are alone because you are in a particular phase of consciousness, and there are very few people in this phase. Most people are still in the first phase, where the stage is real and the performance is life. Many of them are happy, many of them are not, but they are unhappy within the context of a coherent world. They are unhappy the way a character in a play might be unhappy. Their unhappiness makes sense within the narrative, but your unhappiness is of a different kind. It is the unhappiness that comes from seeing the narrative for what it is, and this unhappiness cannot be resolved by changing the circumstances of your life within the narrative. It cannot be resolved by getting the right relationship, the right job, the right amount of money. These things might bring you contentment if you were still in the first stage of consciousness, but you are not. You have begun to see, and seeing cannot be undone. What others perceive as depression in you is not illness. It is a kind of lucidity. What appears to them as emotional coldness is actually a form of honesty. You have withdrawn your emotional investment not because you are incapable of feeling, but because you have become aware of where that emotional investment was being directed, toward maintaining a version of reality that you now see as constructed. You have stopped performing with the same unconscious intensity because you are conscious of the performance. You have become less reactive to the stimuli that once moved you automatically through life because you can see the mechanisms by which those stimuli were designed to move you. This is not a loss of capacity. This is an increase in consciousness. The emptiness you feel is not the emptiness of depression. It is the emptiness that comes when the old sources of stimulation lose their power because you have become aware of how they work. It is like reading a magician's book and then being unable to enjoy magic tricks the way you once did because you can see the mechanism. The emptiness is real, but it is not permanent. It is an interval. It is the space between one mode of being and another. The danger now is that you will interpret this new clarity as superiority. You will begin to believe that you are more conscious than others, more evolved, more aware, more real. This is where the trap reveals itself. This is where many people who have begun to wake up become trapped in a different kind of sleep, a sleep of spiritual vanity. You will look at people who are still fully engaged in the performance of normal life, and you will feel a kind of contempt for them. You will interpret their happiness as naive. You will read their contentment as unconsciousness. You will create a story in which you have graduated to a higher understanding, and they remain beneath you in a state of useful delusion. This is profoundly dangerous, not because it is unkind, though it is that, but because it is a return to the same mistake you made before. Before, you were unconscious of your own unconsciousness. You were living as though your performance was reality. Now, you are in danger of becoming unconscious of your own consciousness in a new way. You are in danger of turning your awareness into another mechanism of control, another way of separating yourself from the world and the people in it. The fact that you can see the stage does not mean you are not also on the stage. The fact that you are aware of the performance does not mean you have escaped the performance. You are still acting. You are still part of the narrative. The only difference is that you are now doing it consciously. This is not superiority. This is simply a different degree of the same thing everyone is doing. There are people who remain unconscious of the mechanisms of their own being and live with a kind of innocent wholeness that you have lost and may never regain. There are people who are fully aware of these mechanisms and live with a kind of deliberate grace that you have not yet reached. And there are people like you, suspended between the two, seeing both and belonging fully to neither. This is not a superior position. It is a more difficult position. It is a lonelier position. It requires a kind of discipline and honesty that is far more demanding than either simple unconsciousness or complete understanding. You must resist the temptation to use your growing awareness as a weapon against others, or as a mirror in which to admire your own reflection. You must resist the subtle arrogance that arrives when you have seen something that others have not seen, the way that begins to harden your heart toward people who are still moving through the world with the innocence you have lost. Because the truth is that your awareness is not complete. You have seen one layer of the illusion, but there are other layers beneath it and above it that you have not yet perceived. There are ways in which you are still completely blind. There are patterns in your own thinking that you still cannot see. There are habits of mind that still structure your reality without your knowledge. Your increased awareness has made you conscious of some mechanisms, but it has likely made you unconscious of others. The way that paying attention to one part of a visual field causes you to miss other parts. So when you encounter someone who is unconscious in a way you are not, do not assume that you are conscious in ways they are not. Assume instead that they might be conscious in other ways that you cannot perceive. Assume that their happiness or their contentment might contain a kind of truth that your lucidity has obscured. Assume that your increased awareness is not a victory, but a trade. You have traded a certain kind of innocence for a certain kind of vision, Neither is superior to the other. They are simply different, and the loss of innocence is real even if the gain in vision is also real. This is important, because the danger at this stage is not that you will fail to grow further. The danger is that you will become attached to the position you have reached and defend it as though it were final. The danger is that you will begin to use your awareness as a kind of identity, a way of separating yourself from the ordinary people around you, a way of creating a sense of meaning out of your alienation from ordinary things. This is the ego taking the form of consciousness. This is the self creating a narrative in which it is awake. And it is one of the most difficult traps to escape, because the trap feels like freedom. What awaits you beyond this place, if you continue to move in the direction you are already moving, is not a state of permanent clarity or unshakable peace. That is the promise that spiritual vanity makes, and it is false. What awaits you is something much more ordinary and much more difficult. It is a kind of integration, a gradual and incomplete movement toward a way of being that can hold both the awareness you have gained and the capacity for simple, unreflective engagement with life that you have lost. It is a return to pleasure and joy and connection, but a return that is fundamentally different from what came before, because it is now contaminated by consciousness. You will never again be able to enjoy things in the simple way you once did. That particular innocence is gone, but you will eventually develop the capacity to enjoy things despite your awareness of their mechanisms, the way that a musician can be moved by a beautiful piece of music, even while being aware of the music theory behind it. You will gradually develop the capacity to engage with people while remaining aware of the patterns and defenses and unconscious motivations that drive them, including your own. You will eventually become capable of a kind of love that is not naive, that sees the other person clearly, including their limitations and weaknesses and contradictions, and loves them anyway. This is not the love of the unconscious, which loves through denial and idealization. This is a harder kind of love. It is a love that has seen through the illusions and chosen connection anyway. It is a love that knows it is choosing, rather than a love that believes in inevitability. It is a love that is smaller and quieter, and infinitely more real. Your joy will eventually return, but it will be different. It will not be the expansive, innocent joy of someone who does not know any better. It will be the quiet joy of someone who knows what they are saying no to and chooses to say yes anyway. It will be the subtle satisfaction of presence, of actually being in the moment you are in, rather than performing the moment you think you should be in. It will be the strange contentment that comes from accepting the limitations of existence without fleeing into denial or despair. These are not the promises of transformation that sell well in the marketplace. They are not dramatic. They do not promise transcendence or enlightenment or any of the things that appeal to the ego that is looking for a way to escape its own ordinariness. But they are true. This is what actually happens when someone moves through this phase of alienation and solitude without losing themselves, without giving up, and without turning their awareness into a weapon or an identity. For now, in this moment, you are in the hollow part. You are in the space where the old way of being no longer works, and the new way has not yet solidified. You feel empty, because the things that used to fill you have lost their power. You feel cold because you have withdrawn your emotional investment from patterns that you have learned were not serving you. You feel alone because you are in a particular phase of consciousness that is not shared by most of the people around you. This is real. This discomfort is real. But it does not mean you are broken. It means you are in transition. It means you have become conscious of something, and you cannot become unconscious of it again. The old life is no longer available to you in the way it once was. The new life is not yet fully available. You are in the between, and the between is always uncomfortable. This is what no one tells you about growth. They tell you it will be rewarding. They tell you it will feel good. They tell you that you will be happy. But they do not tell you about the between times, the hollow times, the times when you have let go of one way of being and have not yet fully embraced another, when you are neither here nor there, when you are neither the person you were nor the person you are becoming. These times are difficult. They are isolating. They are marked by a kind of emotional flatness that can easily be mistaken for depression. But they are also absolutely necessary. They are the cost of genuine transformation. They are the price you pay for moving from unconsciousness to consciousness. And if you can remain in this space without abandoning yourself, without returning to the comfort of your old unconsciousness, without numbing yourself with distraction or medication or other people's narratives about what is wrong with you, Then you will eventually pass through to the other side. You will not be the same person you were, that person is gone. But you will be someone more integrated, someone who can think and feel simultaneously, someone who can see the machinery of existence and still find meaning in it, someone who can love despite understanding love's mechanisms, someone who can take joy in the small quiet things without needing them to mean something cosmic. This will not be a triumph. It will be a becoming. It will feel less like reaching the summit of a mountain and more like settling into a season, quiet and gradual and without fanfare, the way that winter becomes spring becomes summer without any single dramatic moment, just a series of small shifts that accumulate until you realize that the world has fundamentally changed around you, or perhaps that you have fundamentally changed in relation to the world, which amounts to the same thing in the end.